doing episode 36. Just me and Chad, so we'll see how good it is. It might be quite crappy. I think Chad would agree with that. So
that's always the highest aspiration I think we could reach for. So
sure, it's at our highest.
It's just a
crappy.
little crappy. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, there you go. That's the confidence I need.
Go on.
All right, yeah. Let's start with North Korea. I mean, you've gotten a little context of this before from talking to me, but I am quite floored that after all of these years and all of the resources and time and negotiations we've thrown at North Korea, that all of a sudden, they are like so chummy and they like straight up want to work with this administration like hand in hand, and I just don't understand why.
It is really weird.
I think that they have just painted themselves in a corner. The biggest being that, and I posted that link there. Not even to read, but just to, because we always, sources are a big deal. Sources. So just to show that, like, I did see it somewhere and I read it, that they had one of their test sites collapse after. And in the article, it says it's straight up an H-bomb. They've reached like H-bomb levels. And then after they blew it up, the mountain kind of caved in, and there goes your testing site. So that's not good for continuity.
How do they know that? How do they know that?
In the article, it says that Chinese intelligence figured it out.
Okay.
But I'm here to tell you that I guarantee you we figured it out too. I mean, we got people monitoring that stuff every day in the United States.
When we have enough satellites.
Yeah, right. A lot of it in bases on North Korea, sure. But even I mean, we've got capabilities to look at that stuff wherever you can download data. So
sure.
Yeah. So
yeah.
And there's ways, I mean, without giving away too much, not even that it's classified anymore, but I might as well not give away too much. There's ways to like just use the capabilities we have to take certain pictures every day over North Korea, and then you just overlay those images from yesterday to today. And
right.
there's ways to use programs to highlight what if everything in that area stayed the same, then it stays black and white. But if you can like heat map it where like red, if there's like a big red area, that means something changed, something may have moved, and it just makes it so easy to just fine comb the whole area of North Korea, especially the sites that we already know are trouble areas, as far as what they are developing and trying to build. So it's pretty.
So there's just a massive collapsed hill somewhere in North Korea right now.
It's like a collapsed mountainside, yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah. And it's up in the north. And that's actually, they invited a bunch of journalists and diplomats from all around the world to come to this like ceremonial shutdown of the mountain and the testing facility in like a couple weeks, I guess, as part of the whole let's work with everybody else all of the sudden, and I don't know why front they're putting on. So I think, and this is where I get really confused, and I'd like to hear your response to this. Where I get really confused is Trump is hardline America first, and I think that he tries at least to have that approach in everything he does. So I think when you take a super like, F you, it's all about America approach to Korean North Korean negotiations, like North Koreans have always, their stipulation for denuclearizing has always been pull out all your troops from South Korea, which isn't going to happen. So knowing that that's not going to happen, why are they even working with the Trump administration? I have no idea. Now, I mean, maybe now they have internally decided to drop that demand. But it just doesn't make a lot of sense. That's always been a huge part of their demands. You need to remove every single United States like military presence. Every person in Korea needs to go.
Stop running the war scenarios or the war drills they do every
year. Yeah, those are a big deal to them. Yeah.
Stop arming the border. Now,
I'm speculating, but I feel like Trump's approach to this is just going to be, well, America should get everything it wants in this deal. Period. End of story. We're not going to negotiate. So I just don't understand why they would feel like this is the right person to negotiate with. It's kind
I
of
don't know. And when does
surprising.
Trump is going to go and sit down with this guy, right? Isn't that
Yeah, he
happening
is in
soon?
Singapore. Yeah, in Singapore, like next month. I don't even think that's that bad. That's that big a deal. I think that's good.
Really? I think that's going to be fascinating to watch.
Yeah, but tell me. I mean, don't tell me it's going to be like terrible. It'll be. I mean, I think
I
it's at
don't
least.
think so. No.
It
I
might
think
not
Trump will
turn
pander.
out anything fruitful, but I'm not going to be one of these people that when Obama does this, we complain, but then when Trump does it, we don't, and vice versa. No, if any president actually sits down with this guy and is willing to just open up dialogue, that's a good thing.
Sure. I mean,
Too many times our leaders get raked over the coals for just like trying to open up dialogue. Like, oh, like with Obama, it was people on the right that were like, oh, you shouldn't sit down with a dictator. Like, they're just looking for things to criticize. That's all it is. And I think that, especially with the few doors that I've knocked on, and now some of the people that I've just talked to generally when I go out there and try to get people registered, I just think it's better to just talk to people. Like, you can't have an agreement without talking to people, and you can't humanize someone without talking to them, right? So if we just sit here and pound our fists on the table and say, North Korea, you're just terrible, and because you're terrible and you're communist and this and that, we're just going to refuse to talk to you. Like, that's never going to solve the problem. That's never going to solve the problem. You have to at least sit down, talk with them, understand where they're coming from, try to start piecing the puzzle together as to how not how we can be friends, but how we can make the world just safer without more nukes especially in the hands of all powerful kind of monarchs, pseudo
yeah.
monarchs, these like
Pseudo
modern day,
gods.
yeah,
They
even
really
yeah,
are held to that
right.
esteem, especially the
So
original one.
sure,
I forget
all of
his
them are.
name. It was
All of them,
Kim Jong Il was his father, but then it was the dude above him, Kim
sure.
Jong Il's father. But he's literally almost worshipped or viewed as a god. It's crazy. It's like a
Yeah,
theocracy, but it's one that's painfully obvious. Somebody just painted themselves as God. That's literally what this guy did. I gotta look his name up now.
well, look, that's what happens when you go so far to the left. You're communist. Okay, nothing else matters. There's no religion. There's nothing but just the one entity that brings us all together, which in our society we call government. In their society, that's everything. In our society, there's plenty of different lanes that you can fall into. You could exist on a day-to-day basis and be an atheist and just not care. You can exist on a day-to-day basis and be a really hardcore Baptist that mixes your religion with politics. You could be a loose agnostic who doesn't really care to mix politics and you're like light, you know what I'm saying? But over there, there's none of that. There's just like, yeah, like there's no religion, there's no God. There's just, we've come together to create this unifying force. And, you know, how could that not turn into something where how does that not turn into something where whoever represents that collective force over there, the head of it, turns into a God? Because there's no religion, there's no nothing. And it's, religion was created by human beings for a reason. Like, we're always trying to answer questions,
Ooh.
figure out who we are. So if you live in a culture where there is no religion and it's just like, oh, hey, we all serve the greater, in their words, not saying this actually happens, but we all serve the greater good of society by working all together and sharing together, and we do this through this one central entity. Why wouldn't they end up turning into being gods, and being viewed that way?
I
Because
think
there's no
I
other
think they
alternative.
portrayed
Well,
themselves
and
as
they
that
push
way
it too.
though. They
Oh,
tried to sell it.
sure.
You know what I mean?
Oh,
Um,
that's absolutely correct.
so
But my point is, even if you don't, there's always human beings are I don't want to say they're sheep, because that's a negative term that people use, but a lot of us get galvanized by like charismatic leaders. I mean, that's what
sure.
human beings do. Even leaders can get galvanized by leaders above them. Like, that's what human beings do. So that's always going to happen. So I just really, really, if I could be a fly on the wall in the conversation room about the way forward with the U.S. when all of a sudden they were like, "Hey, how about we just like work with them?" Like what? Like,
Yeah, that's how does I mean they
well,
were
how did that
really
happen?
hostile for months with their testing, and then here's the
Mhm.
thing: they have to be really.
Trump made up a nickname for him, and then he
Oh
made up a nickname
God.
for Trump. They went Rocket
Oh
Man, and then
God.
he called him Dotard. And now this is where we are. Like, so great. Are we teaching people that name calling gets us places? God damn it!
It's
Like,
got to be the sanctions though. It's got to be putting there has to
yeah,
be a lot of pressure from those sanctions. Otherwise, why would he do a reversal so quickly? Like
I
why does he
don't
want to
know.
come to the negotiating table so quickly? Something's wrong
I
there.
don't know.
Something is wrong there.
Especially something's got to be wrong. Especially since you're literally negotiating with an administration where the head of the administration calls you nicknames, and like swings his dick around bigger. Remember the red button thing? My button's bigger. Like,
Oh
really?
God, yeah.
Right. Like all these things happened. And so for me, it just adds up to there's got to be something going on where they are just painted in a corner
They
because
have to be. Now,
because you really want to acquiesce to someone who calls you names. Like that's crazy.
how are we going to do this? So what kind of talks can we expect though? Because surely we're going to ask for this guy to just s- step down, right? Wouldn't we ask for a regime change or what? What
So
deal are they going to strike here?
yeah,
It's not going to be
I
a
don't know.
unified Korea.
I don't know because so this is a great question that that we can connect to this. Would you rather them be denuclearized or continue the way they are with their labor camps and their human rights violations for days and days and days? Or would you rather just take a stand against it all, even if they somehow achieve nukes? Do you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, would you sacrifice millions of people being abused and mistreated to denuclearize them to make the rest of the world safe? Or would you take a stand against it all and risk them being further isolated and continuing developing their program to the point where maybe they could use a nuke? You know,
Yeah. I mean, it's tough with North
that's
Korea. I
hard as
think
shit.
I think
It's a
North
hard
Korea's
question
at
to
a
ask.
point where their citizens, because it's bad, like the conditions are really bad for people in North
Yeah,
Korea right now. So
sure.
there needs to be there's got to be some sort of revolt or some sort of rebellion, some sort of
Yeah,
like how do
yeah,
it
but
feel I
yeah,
always feel weird at the idea of us going in there and saying we know how to fix your government, we know what to set you up with. And not to say that we haven't done
yeah,
before. I mean, we had great success
and
in
what?
Japan. We had good success in
Mm,
Germany. We fucked it up with Iraq for a bunch of reasons. Um,
yeah,
and we've done it in
yeah,
other countries and have just fucked them sideways. So I don't.
yeah. We've gotten different results from it for sure.
So there's no way we're gonna ask for a
So
regime change. That's crazy.
I don't think so, especially since they've been so willing to come to the table. Dude, if after they've been so willing to come to the table that the Trump admin just like asks them for regime change, I would just be like, these guys
Got
have
some
no idea
guns.
what they're doing. No, not even have
Striking a
to.
deal,
No,
dude. They're
no.
striking a
Oh,
deal.
stop
He
it.
is
What kind of?
the deal
Oh,
maker.
give me a break. What
Did
kind
you know
of
he
deal
makes
are
it
you
an
doing?
art? He's so good at deal making. It's like an art to him.
Oh, good night.
I mean, we'll
But
see.
it is an interesting question. I think the one that I would choose is I would choose begrudgingly the denuclearization option for
Mm,
now, in the hopes that if we lift sanctions and maybe if that regime starts to slowly let outside information, news, and ideas trickle in, that
right.
could be a
Change will
powerful
come.
force. Yeah.
And I
Uh,
think that's the most powerful way a country
and
can
I
change
and I
itself.
think that if I was the president, I have to come from it from a American perspective. So what does that mean? If I can denuclearize them and hope that
That
sanctions are
information will
lifted,
win.
but in the same breath that denuclearization protects my citizens, that's probably what I would do because it's also protecting Americans by
Mm,
you know yes, is there still human rights violations over there going on that are terrible and need to end yesterday? For
Oh
sure,
yeah,
but
all the time.
these negotiations are delicate, and you can't get everything you want. That was my point before when I say like I feel like Trump just he doesn't really negotiate. He just says like my way or the highway. It's just like Jesus
Yeah,
Christ,
and
bro. So
I feel a great sense of reassurance that South Korea is also going to be playing a huge part in this negotiation
yeah,
as well. It's not just going to be Trump and his admin shooting the breeze or whatever it is that they want to
it's
do, but they're
it's the
part
yeah.
of a talk.
Yeah, and it's the Koreas talking first. They already have talked a bunch of times.
Yeah,
The
right.
we're on the other side of the world, and we're kind of sit on the outside a little bit. I mean, we still sit very close, more so than most countries, but we still sit on the outside in the idea that we're literally not a part of Korea. So, yeah, I would agree with that. And that actually like calms me as far as you're right. If it was only the Trump admin in North Korea, oh man, my faith would be low. That's all I'm gonna say. It would be tough for me to believe
Yeah.
it.
Well,
that
especially after the
they're
Iran
doing their
deal
due diligence.
nonsense.
Right. It would be tough for me to think that they're doing their due diligence
Mm,
and like that they're gonna make the right decision. It could maybe, but it'd be really
maybe.
hard for me to believe that.
I'll tell you what, they
But
better end up striking a good fucking deal on the Iran deal. They better come up with some shit and not just
they
leave it up
didn't.
to these
They
sanctions.
didn't. They're doing sanctions. That's what they're doing.
No, there has to be
Yeah.
more to
No,
than
there
that.
isn't.
Surely he has
They
a deal.
tried to.
Surely,
It was
maybe it's
reported
part
that
of negotiations, dude.
I don't know. Maybe we'll see. I don't think it's not, dude. It's not.
That's
It's
so
fucking not. They're just going back to
ridiculous.
sanctions. They're just going back to sanctions.
Let's not get into that again. Make a better deal.
I know. Yeah. Well, whatever. Well, we'll see what happens with North Korea. If you're Trump and you walk into that meeting, first sitting American president. By the way, Kim Jong-un has either never or rarely ever left North Korea. So there was a lot of speculation that it would happen in the DMZ because Kim Jong-un just doesn't leave North Korea. He's very reclusive, more so than his father and his grandfather, or at least his father was. So the fact that he agreed to go to like Singapore and sit down with Trump, like, wow, where's this coming from?
I don't know.
And also,
what's
you're Trump walking in that room, like, what do you expect? Like,
I
oh my
don't
goodness,
know.
like, who knows? That's a
like
tough
he's going to be the first president to sit down with the leader of North Korea since.
Yeah. I don't know since when.
Like since they took over, I suppose.
Yeah.
Well, at least his grandfather.
Yeah, right. At least since they
So
signed the not a treaty or a peace agreement, but what I don't know, like a non-aggression pact or something, whatever the fuck it is.
Yeah. I don't know. Well, I guess we'll see. I mean, like Trump to some extent has to understand the importance of that fact, though. Like no previous American president has had this opportunity. Now he's the guy that has to do it. He has to do it. You're the president, so we'll see. I really hope he pulls through. I fucking hope he pulls through on the Iran deal.
I think it's
I'm
positive
still upset about that.
I think it's positive that they're sitting down and talking. So,
yeah,
and I think that
sure.
if this opportunity presented itself to Obama or W or Clinton or HW, they all would have done the same thing. They would have sat down and talked to him. I think the hesitation over the years has always
Clinton
been there.
Didn't he? Or not sat down with him, but they struck a deal.
But
they tried to strike a deal.
The hesitation and the fact that this hasn't happened in so long has always just been like because the leader of North Korea, whoever it was, did not want to do that. Kim Jong-il played off of. You've probably seen a bunch of, or if not a bunch, but some sort of documentary on North Korea over the years. I mean, they're everywhere. There's no question that the old regimes and even the beginning of Kim Jong-un's regime, a lot of the way that they would stir the pot and whip up anger against or just a lot of ways they would whip up support for their regime is just stir anger against the United States and just like call them the bad guys and tell them to GFY. I remember I saw a documentary where kind of like a doctor, I don't think he was part of Doctors Without Borders, but like a doctor who does like humane work and like does good things for like poorer countries, went to North Korea because North Korea's healthcare system is really back assward, and
Sure.
He went to cataracts are not something we have to really deal with modern medicine, but because North Korea is so back-asswards on medicine, people are literally blind with cataracts, which are easily reversed. So this doctor would go to North Korea and just do simple 5-6 minute quick procedures to fix cataracts and like let people see again, heal their blindness. That's how garbage they are with their medical stuff and investment and that stuff. But anyways, this doctor's American, goes over there, fixes these people's blindness. Once they see, you can. It's kind of like watching one of those weird religious videos where they're like, "You are healed," and like seeing how like relieved they are in their faces. So like after their blindness is healed, you can tell they're so thankful. They're just like they're bewildered. They're in awe. They're like, "Oh my gosh!" And the first thing they do is they like get on their knees and they pray to like the Kim Jong-il like picture on the wall. This doctor is American.
Right.
First thing they do is get on their knees. And one of the guys, I'll never forget, he was like, "Kim Jong-il, thank you. All praise to you. Now that I have my eyes back, I can go fight the American scum for you." I'm like, what? Like, that dude's American.
Hold up, but they were on camera. Yeah. Did they know they were on camera?
They had to. Difference. They had to. How
makes a difference now?
It wasn't a hidden camera. How about this? You're right. It wasn't a hidden camera. There's no way you don't know you're on camera. Unless you literally don't know what a camera is, which in North Korea, maybe. I don't know.
Maybe. I guess maybe.
This is an older documentary. This camera wouldn't have been some small GoPro that, it would have been a camera.
That might have something to do with it because North Korea watches very carefully their civilians.
It definitely
and if you badmouth it out, like I remember when Kim Jong-il...
Yeah, I'm not expecting them badmouth it on camera. Oh, go ahead, sorry.
Well, I was going to say, I don't know if you remember when Kim Jong-il died, but Pyongyang was showing images of just the city filled with people just bawling their eyes out, crying publicly.
Oh, yeah.
All the public spaces just filled.
That was probably people who... It's not like they were fake crying. You think they were fake crying? No, I mean...
I think a lot of them were compelled to go out and show sympathy.
Yeah, but a lot of them have. First of all, anybody who lives in Pyongyang supports the regime, and you get to live there because, like, you are privileged because you do support. If you don't support the regime, you don't get to live in a place like Pyongyang. You live in the like the shitholes in the countryside.
Okay,
right. So that's first of all.
Sure.
So having that being said, I think that most of the people in that video probably had an honest, genuine love for for Kim Jong-il, because if you're privileged in Pyongyang, all you do is see the benefits of the good life in North Korea. So if you're a part of a privileged family that Kim Jong-il took care of and you were able to live a privileged life and be comfortable, why wouldn't you care for him? Like, now don't get me wrong, 90% of the people who actually live there and who live in the countryside who get treated like garbage probably feel differently because they were treated like shit.
But you know that if those people in the countryside were confronted about like the death of Kim Jong-il, that you would have to...
They would still show remorse on camera because their family would probably either be shipped to labor camps or killed if they didn't.
It's insane. It's the generational labor camps over there are just unbelievably horrible.
Yeah. So and the more we talk about this, the more I'm like, what is Trump looking for? Like, what is he gonna do?
I don't know. What do you do? How much can you ask of him? We are all aware that, to some extent, the North Korean people are seriously suffering right now. So what do you... I mean, sure, let's send aid, but what are we going to ask of him? Surely he's not going to step down, but are we going to ask for more transparency? Are we going to ask for UN investigators to...
I don't know.
No,
it depends on what they're asking of us, too. Because, I mean, everybody knows that... Okay, I'm not going to say everybody knows, but there's probably a good amount of people that know that Trump actually isn't that great at making deals. That's how I feel. I'm sorry. I don't care.
Sure.
You can rake me across the clothes for it if you want, but...
Well, I mean, his first big test
and the way he approaches...
And we saw how that went. So.
Well, the way he approaches things is everything has to be the way that either I or Americans want it, or it's a highway. It's like, that's not a negotiation, bro. That's literally a one-sided way of looking at things.
Bully everyone into
that
deal. In your favor.
it does make a difference to me in these negotiations what North Korea is asking for. Because if they do ask for what they always have been, and they say you need to remove your military presence in South Korea, that's a non-starter. They're not going to do that.
Right.
That's a straight non-starter.
But the fact that they've turned around so quickly, they have to be on the
Right.
ropes, dude. They have to be on the ropes.
What really spurned my
They're
thought
beat
process
down.
of wanting to ask this question this week was seeing the report that they literally have already scheduled and invited journalists and diplomats from all over the world, which they don't ever do, to come and watch the ceremonial shutdown of their testing site that collapsed. They're flying them into some port city.
What?
Probably
I didn't
controlling-
read this.
Yeah, let me look it up and post it because
That's
it's
crazy. What is going on?
I know. That's why I wanted to. I should have posted that one as a link too.
Like if Kim Jong-un.
So, anyways, my point was going to be really quickly. My point was going to be if this is wow, this is crazy.
That's
But
crazy.
go ahead and click on that.
Yeah.
If this is true, then that means that they're already showing a commitment to doing things before we even like. This is so weird. This is so one-sided. You know what I'm saying? Like this is showing a North Korean's commitment to, start holding the end of the bargain that the rest of the world has wanted them to, but without even asking anything of us, which just feels weird. Like that's not normal. Like that's not normally how negotiations work. So I'm immediately skeptical.
Right?
Right?
Like he's showing his hand here
right.
almost. Saying, hey, look, our testing site's fucked. We don't have any cards on the table to play with even.
Yeah.
And we're gonna be like, okay, well,
yeah,
step down, bro. We're gonna send you to the UN tribunal courts for war crimes. Like what is gonna happen here?
I don't know, dude.
So confused. Like it is just, and the fact that they were so aggressive not too long ago, and now. By the way, can we talk about?
Yeah, I'm sharing my screen on it too, really quick. So,
can you scroll down just a little? Scroll down just a little bit.
Because it says, is it locked on my screen? By the way, can you see it?
Yeah, I can lock it on you. Hang on.
North Korea will invite foreign journalists to shut down of nuclear test site to ensure transparency. Like what? Without us giving them anything? Like why? That immediately makes any skeptic say like why.
Look at
anybody who like thoroughly thinks through things like, oh, I know that's his trend. But this immediately makes anybody who's a thinker and like a skeptic be like, well, that doesn't make sense. Like we haven't given you anything. So
it's just
I don't know. Dude,
it's weird times we're living in.
Yeah. It's crazy.
It's just so weird how quickly it all happened, how fast it happened.
I sure hope it works out. So
do I, man.
And a big criticism of pulling out of the Iran deal was, well, hey, look, now you made a good faith deal as a nation a while ago, and you just pulled it out right in this most sensitive of times with talks with North Korea. Like, how do you think that's going to make North Korea feel? It's probably going to make it harder to get a deal. Like, well, clearly it hasn't. So, like, what in the fuck is going on?
I don't know. And just briefly perusing through this article, right?
Sure.
When Mr. Kim announced plans to stop testing last month, he said North Korea no longer needed to conduct tests because it had completed its goals of developing nuclear weapons.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then at the last just like sentence here, but some U.S. officials said the site remained usable and could be reactivated in a relatively short period of time. That's in reference to the collapsed underground mountain testing site. So what are the chances he does have a nuke right now, like a functioning ICBM?
Yeah. I don't know. So they clearly have proven that they can, blow things up.
They certainly can
in quite a big way, in an H-bomb way. Yeah. But that doesn't mean they have the capabilities to not even be able to, because it's not just about the capability of being able to put it on a warhead and a rocket and being able to shoot it accurately. and where you want it to. But you also, I mean, we have robust defenses against stuff like that. Like, there's no way. There's no. It would take them many more years to be able to develop a rocket that could even have a 20 to 30% chance of legitimately actually touching down and striking us, because our defenses are so
They
what they
had the
are.
range, though. They did have the range.
Sure.
If you remember. The ballistics rockets they were testing, we could tell that they had basically had ICBM technology, or at least the range enough to reach mainland United States.
I believe
easily.
it. And I don't know enough about it to be able to comment too hardcore. But I believe it. But I also think that the whole process is probably more complicated than we think to like just attach a nuke to it.
No,
like
of
it always interested me how they were separately doing it the whole time. The blow, and there's probably a reason for that too, but I don't know. I'm just going on the whole like they got to be painted into a corner, and that's why this is happening. So everything kind of flows from that mindset for me. Which,
I mean, we're definitely going to find out. We're definitely going to find out.
Right.
Man. I mean, I will say though, I hope, especially on the Iran deal, but also on this, I hope Trump pulls through. But I'll hold my breath until then.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
So we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. I think definitely the way that Trump goes about things just makes me worry. Always makes me worry. Doesn't mean that bad things are going to happen, but oh man, it feels like they happen a lot of the time. So
I guess I'll say I'm tentatively hopeful. So we'll see.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know.
It's never fair to just like write him off, but oh man.
Well,
so it was a feeling of just like, I'm just gonna.
There's only so many times a dog can bite you before you start just expecting that dog to keep biting you. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like, you're always hopeful that at some point he's either gonna grow out. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. We've had no good evidence that would show us that he has a good capacity to make deals. So I'm just not going to hold my breath. But we'll see. I'm hopeful. I want him to, because out of all the shit that he could screw up, I don't screw this up. Nukes are just horrible things, and the less rogue, weird nations that have them, the better off.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. And there's no question that the rest of the way that this administration carries themselves spills over into everything else. And what I mean by that is, like, I just read today that you remember how Trump used to have Tom Price for Health and Human Services Secretary before he like abused money early on and got forced out.
He abused planes as well. He was taking a lot of plane
spent
rides.
too much taxpayer money and was doing some dumb stuff. So they kind of forced him out.
I remember that.
I read somewhere today, Trump made some announcement on prescription drugs on Friday. I need to read more into what the announcement is. It's probably more, hot air and a bunch of nothingness, but I'm not sure. But anyways, the point is, I read this article that specifically talked about who his Health and Human Services Secretary is now. It's literally I want to say it's a CEO or an executive of a big pharma company. It's like, whoa, drain the swamp. There it is. That's draining it. Super draining it hardcore. No, it's not. It's literally filling the swamp. It's literally raising the swamp levels by throwing in the people who like come from the exact same area. Oh my God. What are you doing?
I can't comment on that, but
we want to lower drug prices and make things better for prescription costs in this country because every other country does better than us. Why don't we take an executive, or maybe it's a CEO or an executive, at least a VIP from a big firm who literally is in its interest to keep prices as high as possible for better profits? Why don't we put him in charge of that? That sounds like a good idea. Yeah, there you go. I
mean, Scott Pruitt is head of the EPA, so I'm not surprised by anything.
Oi, oi, oi. At least Scott Pruitt didn't he wasn't like a CEO of an oil company. Like, and there's no question Scott Pruitt
No,
is
but
questionable at best. But
he's just like completely pro business, anti environmental regulation.
right, but what I'm saying is, if you're Trump, you can get away with saying like, oh, like, haha, like he's just, he never was in. He just always was a conservative in Oklahoma who's fighting the EPA, and I'm picking him because like that's the kind of mentality I want there. I don't agree with that. I wouldn't have picked him, obviously, but fine, you can get away with that because he wasn't like. But yeah, look, former drug industry executive will lead Department of Health and Human Services. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen again. If you can go ahead and lock it, I don't know how you do that. Um, a former pharmaceutical industries official who says drug prices are too high. Oh, I guess he did say it, but still give me a break. He's coming from the area that literally wants to keep them high for profits. Just eats away at anything that even looks like common sense. Just doesn't make sense. So, and that was my original point. When I see stuff like this, and this is like thing number 179 of conflict of interest and BS I've seen in this administration. There's so many. It just feels like they can't actually. It just feels like they really don't either know what they're doing or how to achieve what they wanted to achieve, said they wanted to achieve on the campaign trail, or they're just blatantly just don't care and they're just abusing the power. And either way, I don't want that person walking into conversations with a nuclearized freaking country with sensitive like discussions, because the two options there were you're either incompetent or you guys are so corrupt that it's out of control, and either choice is really not a good one. So the idea that that kind of an administration it just gets to apply its hands to everything is it's funny. Now, and we've said this 100 times, and I want to repeat this. That doesn't mean everything they've done is bad. Absolutely not. But it definitely is frightening when it seems like they really are just shooting from the hip and really could just, well, we're fucking just winging it. It's like, well, some things all right, but some things, please don't. So,
oh my God, this is something I think we should maybe talk about next week. I just pulled up an interesting article.
Sure.
And I was watching a video of this Azar guy. What's his name?
Oh yeah, Alex Azar.
Alex Azar.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
I guess
it's just like a G Pie, man. He used to be a lawyer for Verizon, and it's like, if anything, that gives you a certain amount of insight into holding that position for the Trump admin, but at the same time, it casts a lot of shadowy doubt over what your intentions are. You know what I mean? What do you want out of this? Especially since before you became a part of this administration, you were on the side that was compelled to make money over doing right by American consumers.
Yeah.
Like,
I know. Well, I mean, we've talked for a while. I just wanted to do one more thing, and then we can keep it short this week since it's just me and you.
sure.
I'm sure you don't mind that. But the one more thing, and we could talk. Because having all three of us to talk about This Is America, the song, would be great. But just really quick, just want to hear what you think of that video and just any reaction you have.
Sure.
Just anything. What came to mind?
So it's interesting. I watched the video pretty much without any previous expectations. I didn't know who Childish Gambino was. I mean, I knew the name, but I didn't know his music.
Really? He's good.
Yeah. So I was just perusing Reddit one day, and I saw that was a post, and it was blowing up. So I just jumped right into it. I was like, all right, let's watch this video. And I didn't understand there was so much going on in that video when I watched it the first time that I feel like I missed just about everything.
It goes really hard in the paint really fast too, by just
like visually speaking.
Yeah.
It's a lot of information to take in. And I watched it the first time. I went through the comments and I went back and I've watched it. I've probably watched it like 8 or 10 times since then.
How about
because
this?
it's fascinating.
let me get specific. It is fascinating, but let me get specific really quick.
Sure.
What's the one thing that you have? What's the one? Because there's so many different symbols that anybody could interpret from that video. What's the one symbol that you've pulled from that you've seen and that you have been like, whoa, like I don't know. What's the one thing that stood out for you as far as symbolism? And like,
Yeah.
what did it make you feel? Because I know what I'll go after you, but I know what it was for me.
Sure. For
Actually,
me,
oh yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
well, 'cause, I'm just gonna say for me, because there was one very glaringly obvious message that I was receiving, that I was
Yeah,
understanding,
sure,
and he's talking about how, as far as I can tell, um, the Black community has a lot of problems it should be concerning itself with, and they tend to get distracted by popular media, or popular media pushes a
sure.
narrative to distract from
I would,
things that might
yeah.
want to pay attention to. Because
Really
you got
quickly
those
before you keep
cliches.
going, I would say
Sure.
that happens to every community, but yes, I think because he's black, he's targeting his own community.
Right,
Yes.
of course. I'm not saying that's
Right.
exclusive to the
No,
Black
no, of course. I
community.
just want to make that clear. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, fair enough. I think, to be fair, you could say that that's a problem in a much wider aspect for probably any
Sure.
community you want to talk about today. We're so
Yeah.
consumed by popular media, we don't really pay the fuck
Or
attention.
social media too.
Sure, yeah.
So
But yeah, so that's what it seemed like to me. You had
sure.
those kids that were the four kids that were behind him.
Hmm.
And again, like I said, I've watched it probably 10 times since then. I've been reading a lot of comments, just really trying to understand it because I was so dumbfounded. Well,
Right. Right.
just about the more subtler parts of the song, I suppose.
So for me,
Sure.
I don't know why this stood out so much, but I saw it the first time. There's those two parts where he fires weapons and kills people, right?
Yeah.
The one with the pistol in the beginning, and then the one with the
The AK.
well, let's just call it AR, but it does look like an AK, but some sort of AR where he shoots down the choir. Do you notice how careless and carefree he shoots the weapon, right? And how careless and carefree he treats the people that he's with. Obviously, like crap because he's shooting them and killing them. But do you notice how he treats the gun after? Go back and look at it. Both times, someone is waiting with a silver
With a
platter,
red,
like
no,
rag,
with
a
a
rag,
red handkerchief. Yeah,
handkerchief,
it's like a nice
ready,
silk
ready
red
to treat
handkerchief.
the weapon better than the people in the scene are being treated.
Right,
That
and he just
really
drops
stuck
it. He
with
just drops it carelessly into that a
yeah.
waving
So,
silk,
and it
carefully
could not be.
placed.
We all are, and this is kind of why I'm okay with him not actually saying like what he meant and what exactly the symbols he wanted to portray. It's because it's fun to speculate. It's fun to just kind of talk about it
Of course it is.
yeah,
Art
just
is
in the
all
pot.
about speculation, you
Right.
know?
But for me, that kind of showed me like we live in a society where there's definitely some people. This goes along with the distraction thing too. We live in a society where people will literally die, but we won't do anything about it. And in that sense, like we treat the gun as a pristine, like we can't infringe on the rights of this thing at all, even if people are dying, right? And there's a debate to
Mhm.
go into there. There's no question about it. I'm not saying that we should not have guns at all, or we need more
No, of
control or
course.
less.
But I
But I'm
think
just saying, like that symbolism in that's kind of what showed me, like, ooh, like
if I could say though,
sure,
after Sandy Hook, when no new gun legislation or any change in
right.
legislation or attitudes at all followed, that was the moment I knew that it was going to take
It's
a
gonna take
hell of a lot of
it's
time
it's
for
gonna
any
take
sort of attitudes to
sure.
change.
I think it's gonna
We didn't
take.
do anything.
I know.
Elementary school kids were gunned
I know.
down,
I think it's
and we
gonna
didn't do
take.
a goddamn
I
thing.
know.
That's
I know.
crazy.
And if you and I know you did when you watched that conspiracy theory Vice video, breaks my heart, especially over
Oh God, yeah,
yeah
Jesus.
the
The crisis actors.
oh gosh, the guy that
Yeah,
just like goes after the parents of children, like
right. No,
my
no.
goodness.
I just like to clarify real quick. I'm not saying
Mm.
that after Sandy Hook, like we should have banned all guns, but I'm
No,
saying Sandy Hook was the event where if any real
if
gun legislation
so,
were to come,
yeah,
it would have been then, and it
and
didn't come at all.
this is what I was gonna say. If there was ever any one-off instance of a a mass shooting that would have changed stuff, you would have thought that would be it.
You would think.
I
Yeah.
think that it's going to take weekly mass shootings on large scales before we ever finally say like, okay, like it's got to be something that just keeps it in the conscious for over and over. It's got it.
I think
which is sad.
I think what it's gonna
That's
take is for people to come to their goddamn senses. I think people who are way too pro-gun and way too anti-gun need to tone down the rhetoric and meet in the middle.
It's got to
'Cause it's
actually
just
affect
dumb.
them directly before they say, "Wow, maybe."
Yeah,
what,
maybe
you know?
you're not wrong.
Yeah.
Or attitudes just need to change. People need to stop being so hostile and feel like they have to be so far on the spectrum to justify their own beliefs. Relax.
Yeah.
Come to the center. Let's talk middle ground.
Yeah.
It's not, we'll all be all right. There's a better middle ground.
I know.
Always is.
But to be able to solve any problems out of that middle ground, you need reasonable dialogue where people actually admit that other arguments can be better than their own.
I
A
know.
lot of people can't. That's
Well,
what
a lot
gets
of people have their egos so invested
Right.
in what they believe in. It's like, put that aside for a moment.
Right. Compromise needs to have the best argument come out of the discussion. And if both sides refuse to acknowledge the other another side's good arguments, then you have
Right.
nothing.
Well, because let's be honest, any tentative, any red, what are they called? Hot button issues. Any hot button issues in America today are hot button for a reason. There are good arguments on both sides.
Yeah.
That's why it's hard.
And I've said something to Dad before. I've said it to a bunch of people, and I believe it. Most things people say, whether they are either sane at face value or kind of crazy at face value, usually have some basis of truth, right? It's just the truth is at the base, but then it'll get misconstrued and spun in whatever way that they want to, however they want to support their agenda. They'll spin it
or how it's been fed to
muddy
them.
the waters. Yeah, muddy the waters so that it supports their agenda. But there is some basis of truth. So,
well, yeah, because you have to have a small grain of truth to hide inside of whenever somebody tries to call you on your bullshit.
Right, because if you're just straight InfoWars, everyone's gonna be like, "Come on, you're InfoWars."
It's like, relax. You got
right. Literally no basis of truth at all.
You know what? Trump does this a lot, where he'll say something that's like almost inflammatory, and when he gets called out for it, he kind of walks it back in a way that you're like,
in a Trump
okay,
way,
that is a
not
way
a
you
normal
could,
way, right?
well, in a way that's like, okay, you could interpret it as that way, but you know that that's not how he meant it,
right?
Like, he has that grain of truth that he can walk back to.
He walks
and like shed the antagonism that he's getting for the latest thing that he said or done.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I don't know. It's fascinating to me. You can hide in just a small fraction of the truth, and that's enough for the people who are on your side. They're like, you know what? That's enough for me. I'm with you. I'm standing with you. Fuck those other guys.
Yeah. Well, that's where we'll leave it.
Yeah, I mean, how do you fix that? I think we should leave it there.
We crushed a solid amount.
Yeah, that was good, man.
Yeah, it was good.
Here,
I'll cut it.